This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 439 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products and Total Saddle Fit. Tonight, we're going to talk to one of my students who will help me to try to summarize the Carl Hester Clinic we attended last weekend. And we will also have one of Reese's students on who recently won an international 2-star eventing competition.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Reese. We haven't talked in a couple of weeks. So,
I know.
It's good to get back together and chat about some
miss
dressage.
Everybody. I know, I miss everybody for sure. Yeah, and we have a great show this week. And next week, you are coming down to visit me. Super excited. Phil's coming to coach me at the national finals. So I needed somebody, and I called Phil, and he said, I'm coming. So
it was a phone-a-friend situation.
It was a phone-a-friend. I'm like, I need somebody.
Get the eyes on the ground.
Super excited about it. So it'll be really fun to have you come. And next week here are the finals in Kentucky. So I think people are getting ready to come or on their way. It's a huge show and gets bigger and bigger every year. So it should be a lot of fun to have everybody in Lexington, and we really should put up some fun places to eat and some fun places to do, but certainly feel free to always send me an email if you have any questions and need some local advice. I'm happy to give it to everyone here that's coming to Kentucky. So should be a fun week. But
perfect.
Great.
What's the weather? That's all I care about. What's the weather? No snow.
Well, I would like to give you a good report. I will tell you today it was beautiful and 70 degrees. Yesterday, I think it was 30 and raining.
Yeah.
So
could be anything.
It could be really anything. I mean, literally today I was in a t-shirt, and yesterday I was shaking at the end of the day. It was so cold. So I would love to give you, that's a little bit the tricky part of Kentucky in November. It can be, it's absolutely gorgeous. Like when the sun came out this afternoon, oh, it was great. I mean, it's really pretty, and the leaves are still up, and it's quite nice. So, well, fingers crossed that it's going to stay that way. So yes, because
okay, we'll take it as it comes.
I can't promise you, Phil, but I just step it up and get the inside heated stalls. So that's nice. It'll be a little warmer for us. So, but I can tell everybody.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say there was some sad news in dressage world this week, and I know that a friend of yours had passed away. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about him?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people, certainly in this area in Florida, knew Jimmy Mandela. He died this week on Halloween, and Jimmy was just a wonderful person. He was a steward for Global. He worked at Global, and but I met him at Gladstone in 2009, and he was a dear friend of mine, and I got to see him a little bit this summer, and we got to actually cook a really, really fun. We spent the entire day cooking a meal for everyone at Hester Dressage. So my heart goes out to all of Jimmy's friends. Really, we lost one of our dressage angels this week, so it was a really sad week for all of us. But I know he will rest in peace, and he's looking down at all of us, and we'll certainly be doing that at the finals. So love to everybody that knew Jimmy, and we'll be thinking about him for sure. So,
well, I'm sorry to hear the bad news. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. But we have a great show today. We have a couple of our students on.
Yeah, we're going to have the student show, right?
We've not done a student show. We didn't even actually plan it that way, but yeah. But I think our first guest you'll really enjoy. She's 17, and she's quite a young star in the venting world. But we started working together this summer, and I changed the dressage program a little bit and made her actually go to some dressage shows. So she's going to talk a little bit about that and how she just won her first 2-star international event. I hope you enjoy our discussion with Alexandra. Well, tonight we are so happy to have Alexandra Baugh. She was just named to the USEF Eventing 18 squad, and she just won her first two-star event, which is a big deal for eventers. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we are super excited. So you have to tell us, because we're going to eventually get to dressage, but we want to hear a little bit about you and your horse and what you just won, because it was a big deal for Eventland, and you are 17, which is even bigger deal. So tell us a little bit about you and Mango.
Yeah, Mango and I got him 2 years ago. He was kind of a lucky find. And then we've just been working towards this goal of moving up to the upper levels. So I guess this past weekend, a little milestone came true. Not only did I complete my first two-star, but I was able to have my first international win under my belt, which was really exciting. I think
huge, very huge. Yeah, very huge. And the two-star level would be similar to, right, our sort of, it's not quite it's kind of intermediate 1, intermediate 2, or
I2 somewhere in there.
Yeah, I2. Yeah. It's not quite to the advanced level. 3-star is advanced, right, Alex? But it's just under.
Yep.
So that's sort of the level that you're competing when we kind of put it in dressage terms. So that's getting way up the levels for sure.
So Alex, in your dressage test, what kind of stuff do you have to do in the 2-star level? What does it include?
Well, with the 2-star, they introduced the half pass and the turn on the haunches to the left and the right. That was kind of introduced. And then we have our counter canners, serpentines, and then we don't have flying lead changes yet, but we do have transition simple changes through the walk.
Yeah, and what was some of the difficulty learning that test?
Definitely the turn on the haunches, because I've never done it before. I think I learned it a week before the show.
we did. We did broach that subject pretty quickly. Well, because, and we say that because we are a pretty new team together, Alex and I, and it's super fun to coach her. But we kind of did something a little bit different from you, right? Kind of leading up to the show. What did we do for all the eventers in Eventland?
We did a lot of dressage stuff.
Yes, I made her go to a lot.
So we did a test ride, tried to get Mango into as much dressage without jumping as possible.
Which Mango hated, didn't he? You probably hated it too.
He hated it.
But I made you do it anyways. Yeah. And don't you think that's a pretty good tip for eventers? Is, that was one of your issues, was you didn't really have that much ring time. You go to events and you do all that, but when we start getting up into the higher upper levels, there's a lot more stuff involved. Like you said, it's essentially a second level test that you're doing. And so, it was important that we sort of went and worked on those. So what are some things that you find in the turn on the haunches that are hard? And we'll see if we can talk it through for a minute.
For me personally, with my horse, it's just keeping the rhythm and letting it be fluent. Because he already knows how to do it, but since I'm just learning it, it was kind of like it wasn't as fluent as I would like it to be. And then just getting the technique of being able to do it on the haunches and then picking up their feet and not making sure they stray off the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil, do you have some tips for turn on the haunches? You're like a turn on the haunches Zen master.
I think one of the things that is, I think, really important for a turn on the haunches is to not to make it too small too early, because it can ruin a lot of everybody just tries to kind of, stop the horse and then turn the hind legs around the front legs a little bit. And that is really not the correct way to go about it. So I think this is a problem a little bit in the terminology, because they call it a turn on the haunches. But when I think of turn on the haunches, when I teach turn on the haunches, early on in the horse's training, I really stop the horse and then just bring the front legs around the hind legs. But in the test, a turn on the haunches is more like a larger walk pirouette. So I think that's something I try to explain to people, is that it's better to have rhythm in the turn than to have more turning. Everybody tries to do all this turning, and they have no rhythm and no bend and no balance. So the first thing I try to establish in the turn on the haunches is, maybe taking the horse in walk on an 8-meter circle and just walking that 8-meter circle. I mean, a lot of horses have even a lot of trouble in a small walk circle to maintain the bend and the rhythm. So if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be trying to turn the horse's shoulders around. And then the second step is to establish a little bit of travers on that walk circle, that small walk, 8 meters, 6 meters, anywhere in there, and then doing a little bit of travers. Again, just travers, thinking of taking the hind legs on just a very slightly smaller track than the forelegs. So the forelegs do an 8-meter circle, the hind legs do a 7.5-meter circle. And because it's all about bend and, like you said, fluidity, so that you can maintain the bend, you can maintain the quality of the walk, and then you have a little bit of travers. I think that's sort of the introduction that people miss a lot, because they try and just, kind of stop the horse on the spot, spin around, face the other direction, and get out, and then do the same on the other side. And that's not really what the turn on the forehand, is in, has to do within the test. That's more of a practice or training way of doing it, but this is more about balance, bend, rhythm. So I think that's how I try and describe it and try and help people with it, so that they, then you just make the circle smaller and smaller and smaller, and not, what the other big problem is that people try and make, a 5-meter circle with the front legs and a no-meter circle with the hind legs, and then that's how you lose your rhythm, is because the horse, is just stopping and turning or spinning, and you hear all this terminology that is not good. Nobody really says how to fix it. So always start with it big and work your way very slightly smaller, very slightly smaller, very slightly smaller, until you got the forelegs doing a 3-meter circle and the hind legs doing a meter circle. Then you'll be better off, I think.
Yeah.
That's my fix for the walk.
That's your fix for the walk through. Alex, I know what we're doing tomorrow, girlfriend, and your lesson.
Oh yeah.
She's excited. Look at the excitement I get from all my eventers. It's so fun. So Alex, tell us a little bit about too, stuff that we work with in the dressage. What has that helped you out on course when you're, galloping really, really, really fast? It's very scary when you do that. Does it help? Why do we do this dressage stuff?
Oh yeah, it definitely helps a lot. Like, I think, especially in the cross country, when you're galloping around and you need to maintain so your canter doesn't get flat. I think the dressage really helps so that you understand what it's supposed to feel like. So when you go out there and you're going faster, you've already established it and it's easier to maintain. And then I also think, like, for cross country, me personally, like, especially with Elmo, he's a bit of a spooky horse now. So I think, like, leg yields and stuff, if he starts to spook at a corner, you can leg yield him into it so that he'll jump it. And I think that's been a lot, it's been really useful.
Yeah, I love it. So, Alex, tell us, what is the USCF Eventing 18? What does that mean?
It's the developing rider program for the riders in the country that a selection committee has determined that they think that they will be upper level riders someday. So what they do is it's kind of like a bit of a sponsorship. So I'm going to go down to Ocala, Florida for 2 weeks in January. They haven't set the dates yet, but when they do, we'll be heading down, and I think they pay for the coaching, the stabling, and like the expenses for the horse for the 2 weeks that you're down there. And then I get to train with Leslie Grant Law, who was an individual gold medalist at the Athens 2004 Olympics for eventing. That
is so cool. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your plan with both of the horses? You have two wonderful horses. So what's your plan with them for next year?
Next year, I think I want to go back to young riders. This past weekend at the 2-star, I qualified Mango. So I think just getting to know Elmo and hopefully qualifying him, and then hopefully in the spring around sometime move up and do the CCI 2-star, which is just a longer, a bit tougher cross-country course and a bit more technical dressage. And then at the end of the year, and then at the Yeah, and then hopefully in the fall, maybe move up to the advanced level.
I know.
And see what happens there.
You can see where I'm super excited that I coach Alex because it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun together. And, I do slightly love torturing my event riders and making them go to dressage land. They really hate it, but it definitely pays off, doesn't it, Alex?
It does. Yeah. There's been a huge improvement since I started coaching with you.
Yeah, it's been fun. So, well, we can't wait to kind of keep an eye on you and watch you as you develop. And we're super proud of you. And can't wait to keep working on these walk pirouettes and get them completely fixed for next year.
Sounds good.
Well, right after this commercial break, we're going to come back with Andrea Scott, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the Carl Hester Clinic that was in Canada.
No words can describe the depth of the bond between a horse and his person. A kiss at the gate just before you turn him out. The soft touch of his muzzle on your hand as he scoops up the treat out of your palm. The warmth of his body under your legs as you saunter bareback across the pasture. The beat of his hooves as you gallop in perfect rhythm cross-country. The sensation of flying as you clear the oxer. The sense of peace that comes over you as you walk together down the quiet trail. The sound of him contently eating his dinner. The feel of his warm, soft coat under your hand. The feeling you get when it's just you and your horse. It's why we do what we do at Kentucky Performance Products. This feeling is brought to you by Equidual. Fight back against an energy crisis that can impact condition and performance. Equidual is a high-fat, low-starch and sugar formula that was developed to safely meet the energy needs of your horse. The horse that matters to you matters to us.
Well, tonight I'm really pleased to have one of my students on the show. We always have Reese's students all the time when they come on.
Ouch, Andrea.
I think you have an easier time getting people to agree to come on the show, and you're more coercive, perhaps.
I guess.
But anyways,
I am a student of both of yours. So.
Exactly.
Yeah,
see,
that's
Phil?
All right. I have her like most of the time, 10 months or so, and she sees you for 2 months. So, anyways, I thought we'd bring her on because we were, Andrea and I were really lucky to be able to attend and audit the Carl Hester Clinic symposium that was just held here near Toronto. And we had a wonderful time, and I asked her if she'd come on the show and give us a little bit of perspective from an amateur rider, a physiotherapist. Andrea is also a physiotherapist, and I thought we could have fun talking about it. So, hi, Andrea. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So maybe you could start us off a little bit with an overview of, how the clinic was run and what the format was, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, it was a 2-day clinic, 9 to 5 each day, and about 14 riders were selected to participate in the clinic, and there was, I think between 1,200 and 1,500 people auditing, so it was very well attended and very well run by EMG, and which is Equestrian Management Group out of Palgrave, Caledon, Ontario, and so we. Attended, got our coffee, got our breakfast, and just were introduced to Carl, who was very charming. And, he just basically led us through training sessions morning and afternoon. And we just got to soak it all in. It was fantastic.
Yeah, so I think they selected horses from all age groups. So we got to start actually at the beginning, not the very beginning, but, a couple of 4-year-old horses came in. And, in the morning they did those horses, and then you kind of work your way up through the levels, 5-year-old and then 6-year-old. And then they went to more of the level of training rather than the age of the horses. And we got to see all the way up into Grand Prix, which was amazing. And we had great riders in the area to be able to observe and kind of learn from. So that was a really a great thing. So Andrea, what did you think, about from kind of that perspective? What does an amateur rider kind of take away from watching these kind of more professional lessons?
I think with every rider that he that he trained, there was a little pearl that I took away. And so, even when I was watching the Grand Prix and the I-1 and I-2 riders and horses, there was always some little thing that I thought, I wrote down and I could take back to my barn and use for training. I think one of the things that stuck with me when I went back to the barn was he talked about how to extend the walk, and I always have troubles with the walk with my horse, and he talked about using rowing. And being a rower in the past, in my younger years, I was a rower, and he just talked about using the body and rowing with the arms and the body to extend the walk. And it was such a little thing, and he said that with everybody, and everybody was trying it, and it really made a huge difference for them. And when I got home, it made a huge difference for me, just sort of lengthening the walk, bringing the walk into a more forward and balanced extended gait. It was a great little pearl. But there was just so many things. I wrote like 5 pages of notes on each day, and I was just such a nerd for this course. But like I said, from even just the 4-year-old horses right up to the Grand Prix, there was something for everybody. And myself as an amateur rider, I was able to glean little bits of training knowledge, even from watching the Grand Prix riders, which was great for me.
All right, I did see you taking a lot of notes, so that's why I thought I'd bring you on, because you're such a great note taker. So maybe we just go through. I mean, as many as we can get through, and as many as we can remember together here. Well, how about the 4-year-old horses? Is there anything there other than kind of the walk? Because there's not a lot you can do with a 4-year-old, is there?
Well, not really. I mean, it was just basically, he talked a lot about straightness, and that's sort of the most important thing I think that he was talking about with the 4-year-olds, and the thing that he concentrates on the most is straightness, and having a plan. Every time that you go out there, having a plan when you ride, and how important stretching was in the young horse, which is something that I mean, even though my horse is 13, I don't really think about it as much in the past as I do now after having come from this course, and taking stretching breaks and stretching the young horse, and just how important it is, and where they're carrying their neck, and so that was a great point for me. Even though I have a 13-year-old horse, just learning about straightness and stretching, and
I think that a lot of us have. Some of us are very blessed with horses that come kind of very elastic and very stretchy. I think we can kind of, if you're working on the levels, we can kind of forget how important it is to be stretching the horses and to be making them elastic, even if they don't come very elastic. I think sometimes you can rush into the work, whereas maybe yesterday you were working on leg yield, for example, or shoulder in, for example, but you're like, okay, I just want to get at that. I just want to, go and attack a problem or attack something that was very challenging yesterday without properly warming up the horse over the back and warming up the stretching. So I think if you really spend most of your time on a young horse, on a 4-year-old horse, for instance, on making them elastic and stretching, and then as you train the horse up through the levels, that you should be returning to that, as you begin your ride, somewhere in the middle of your ride, and then at the end of the ride as well. Because I think, actually, I was having a lesson today, and there was a reminder, like the horse is having tension problems, the horse is having balance problems. So, you just get that horse back to walk, stretch it out a little bit, do a little stretch and trot, and then back to canter again, and hopefully the tension goes away. It's something really simple and really important to establish before you start moving on to other things. Yeah. So I think that's a great point.
I know. Well, yesterday I was working on the canter for the better part of my 40 minutes that I was on my horse, and it really hit home that I stopped in between. I'd work on the left a little bit, and lengthen the canter and shorten the canter, and then I stopped and I did a nice stretch break in between, and then I worked on the right side. And I would never have done that before. Like, I never really think of doing that. And so, now I'm sort of stopping, stretching in between, and it really makes a big difference when you go back and repeat the work. Or
mentally
do the work
and physically,
side.
I think.
For sure.
For both things.
There's a lot of tension released, and they just seem so much more supple and elastic when you have that little bit of a break. So
perfect.
But that's for riders too, wouldn't you say, Andrea, as a physio? I mean, even riders need a little bit of that mental, maybe even physical break, not break, but let down if you're working pretty hard. Would that be also something to think about there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I find that when I've got hip problems and back problems, as most of us do. But when you're working on a particular element, and you're working on it for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and you find that you are increasing the tension in your body, and your horse is increasing the tension in their body, and to stop and take that little mental break and that stretching break for them, and just do a nice rising trot and let them stretch down, and open up your hips when you're doing your rising trot, just releases some of the tension in your body for sure. And it's good all around. It's good for the whole unit, the rider's horse unit. Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely. So kind of moving up through the levels, and maybe we'll if you've got any pearls of wisdom around, the horses that were doing second or third level, did you glean anything from that?
Like the 5-year-olds, you mean, or when?
Yeah, 5-year-olds are great.
Yeah, 5-year-olds. Yeah, that's around that age.
I think a couple of the 5-year-olds were sort of working at second and third level. Some of the things, one of the things I was writing down about when he was talking about the 5-year-old horses was sort of the proper use of the whip. And I don't think a lot of us really think about that too much. I know I carry a whip in my hand all the time, and I probably don't use it properly, according to Carl. But just, using the whip only when you're looking for a forward reaction of the horse. And, I probably use my whip for more than that, and I shouldn't be, and he was really stressing that you really should only be using your whip when you want a forward reaction from your horse. And when you get that forward reaction, you praise, and you use the whip for nothing else, which was, I never really thought about it too much. I probably use the whip for, some negative things too, like when I get frustrated. And, so just really to step that back, and to not always ride with your whip, ride with it and then put it down, and maybe get used to not riding with it. So, and just using it when needed, and to only get the forward reaction of the horse, and then that's it. So that was something that I gleaned.
Yeah, I think use it when needed, and also make sure it served the purpose. Right, because if you're not getting a reaction for it, then what's the point of doing it at all? And you're not training the horse in the right way. Also, like don't tap and then get nothing, and then just carry on. And just the horse becomes very dead to it, and very and it is a training tool, and it's for a purpose, and it has to serve that purpose. Otherwise, you might as well not have it. I think that's that's a good point about whip usage or anything that you do. I mean, if you don't get a reaction, you have to follow it up a little bit, and keep training the horse to be responsive to all of the aids.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I'm sort of to blame for sort of little nagging, and not getting the reaction that I want, and then just maybe letting it go, rather than, use the whip, get the reaction that you want, the forward reaction that you want, praise the horse, and then carry on, rather than little nagging and, maybe letting things go when you shouldn't. So I thought that was a really great thing for my mind, and I'm not always holding the whip now. I'm putting it down for a little bit and then getting it back. And, it just teaches me more the importance of the whip, and when to use it, and what it should be used for.
Yeah.
So
Really good.
Great little tool for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also took a lot of, right now working on level 3 with my horse, and the changes are, something that I've started with and showed the last season in level 3, and sometimes got them, sometimes didn't. And so we spent a lot of time working on some of these third level horses, and then the 5 and 6-year-old horses, talking about the changes and, what you're looking for, when to ask, and all of those things. And that was that was great for me. Thinking about, pushing through the ears on your changes, that was a nice little sort of visual for me. And that the changes should always be a forward transition, or not really transition, but
it can be a transition. It's a moment of energy and something should happen. I think that's kind of the idea of a transition, is that you're not going to wait. If you ask for something and the horse doesn't do it, you can't wait around for that thing to happen. It has to happen when you ask, and in a correct forward way. Rather than, we see a lot of horses that kind of jump up and down or wait until they're ready. Like you give the aid and then the horse goes, I'm not ready. So I think working on timing has to be a very big part of it, and an expression of energy has to be a big part of it, because if the horse doesn't go forward, then you aren't actually going to get a change with the legs doing what they're supposed to. So I think that's
right.
That can be a good thing.
I love the exercise, and he did it with quite a few of the riders, actually. The exercise along the long side, where you did 3 or 4 canter strides and a nice forward canter, and then you had more expression in your change without with reduction of tension, and then there would be a collection, and then there would be 3 or 4 collected steps or strides, and then into a more forward stride, into the change, and then back into a collected stride. So I love that little exercise, and I've been practicing, not always getting it, but then practicing it and trying it, and just to try and reduce some of the tension and get that sort of nice forward canter into your change, which is it was a great little exercise. So I'm looking.
I thought it was interesting that. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to talk about the same exercise, but I thought it was interesting about how the counting was involved even in the beginning of that kind of thing. So, like you said, there was you come out of the corner, you collect for a stride or 2, and then you count 3 strides or 4 strides or however you want, 3 strides forward, change, collect out of the change, and then count again 3 strides. And like there was a real emphasis on some of the counting, even as you're introducing the changes. So it's not just go forward and do the change whenever. It's like, I'm going to do on the third whenever. Beat.
Yeah.
Right. And then it doesn't happen whenever. It's more organized. So I thought that was really, really good, because I think even as a professional, like I kind of wait till I get the canter feeling right. But it was like, no, it's got to do on the counting. And then the transition to tempi changes, it would be a lot easier. Because the counting's already been introduced. So, you're not doing multiple changes. You just like collect, and then you say, okay, from this, you create the right collection. From this collected canter, I'm going to go forward a few strides, 4, 5, it doesn't matter how many it is, but then you decide, then I change, right? Not just I'm going to go forward until whenever, some ambiguous thing. So I thought it was good to have it organized, and I can see how that leads towards better tempis. And then you do the change nice and forward, and then right away collect again, and wait until you have the collection, and then count another few strides, and do another one. Or whether you're coming across the diagonal, it's very organized. So I thought that was really kind of handy and good.
Yeah, it was a really great, well organized little exercise, because I know I'm so excited when I get the change.
Yeah.
What happens, I'm so happy, and I'm celebrating this. Oh, I got the change, and in the 2 strides that I'm celebrating, my horse is dove his head down and is digging to China, as Carl would call it. And then you've lost it. So it's just it's having that nice expressive forward canter, change, collect, and then moving forward again without celebrating how excited you are about your change and letting the horse completely fall apart after, which Philip, I do all the time. I'm just so happy.
Yeah, that's a classic.
You're not the only one. You're not the only one.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
That's everybody.
So, anything else? I mean, just moving up through the levels, St. George horses.
Third level. Well, I liked, he did tons and tons of shoulder in exercises, which, are important from second level right up until Grand Prix, which was great, and working a lot on shoulder in on the quarter line, away from the wall. And also another little tidbit that I picked up with the shoulder in is as you're coming along the short side and around the corner, make it like you are going to do a diagonal when you ride out of the corner. And that sort of establishes your nice angle for your shoulder in. And to look at, if you're coming around the corner, to look at C or A, depending on which corner you're in, and focusing your vision on C or A as you do your shoulder in along the long side. And that's really sort of helped me. I don't know, I think I'm always looking straight ahead, and that sort of affects, the angle of my shoulder in. And just now that I'm working on, as he said, to look at the center of your long side of A or C, and it really helps to establish a really nice, a nice angle for your shoulder in. So that was a great little tidbit that I really liked.
I think that's great. I think if you look down the wall too much, you actually end up losing your hind legs. You ride too much of a of a leg yield, So I think you just have to press the hind leg a little bit under the horse's body, but try not to get the hind legs, really crossing or getting that inside hind leg over the center of the horse's gravity, because then you actually do a detriment to their balance and to the purpose of the bending in the exercise, right? And a lot of horses do that to get out of the correct bend and to get out of really working, because too much angle and the horse gets very it stays very straight and so it's part of the training where you come from first level and you're doing leg yield, and then the trainer says, okay, now just point the horse across the arena and put your inside leg on. And the horse does try and do leg yield. I mean, but as you develop it, and like you said, it develops all the way through the levels. You develop a better understanding of bending the horse and not crossing the hind legs, but actually activating the inside hind leg towards the center of gravity, sideways and underneath, I think. And if the horse's hind leg goes too crossing, you don't get it underneath, and that can be a huge problem in trying to develop your collection or maintain your collection and keeping everything kind of lined up and together for the horse.
Staying in self-carriage, because I find I always tend to, as soon as I make that angle, I tend to lose my self-carriage and my rhythm, and and it just gets short and choppy and
not beautiful and elastic, right?
Not beautiful, right? Yeah. So
that's normal.
We all have.
Yep,
yes,
that's a normal problem.
But it's nice in a clinic situation to see it demonstrated and to see the change that a rider can make in a horse. Now, the professional riders always make it look really, simple and easy. Carl says, just reduce the angle and press forward a little bit more, than the rider just does it. But I think that's the purpose of having professionals, is that you want to see the change, the difference demonstrated. And yes, we always feel a little bit bad when they're like, oh, they just do that. And then, you go home and you try it, like, oh, well, that didn't really work, or whatever it is. But I think that's very, very helpful. It's like you want to see it done maybe a little bit incorrectly and then correctly, to give you a picture in your mind about what's supposed to happen.
When I came home and I was so excited to try all these things, and of course it never works out the way when you see some of our top Canadian riders going. You think, okay, I can do that, and then you get home and you try, and it just doesn't work out the same, and then you get frustrated, and you try and tone it down a notch and tone down your expectations a notch.
That's it.
Sure. That's normal too.
Oh, for sure.
So anything else? Are we gonna? Yeah. Is there any more exercises or things that we can talk about?
Oh, exercises. Well, it's funny when I got home, my daughter, who's a rider, she's a jumper, and she said, what did you learn on your course? And then she said, no, actually, just tell me the one thing that the one thing that was the best. And it was hard for me to sort of narrow it down. And so I started telling her all this stuff. She goes, no, Mom, just tell me one thing that kind of stuck with you that you're going to love enjoying training with. And I said, one thing that he kept saying that it just seems so simple, but that all of your transitions should be forward. He said that over and over again. And yes, I guess you always think of your up transitions as being forward, but you don't really think of your down transitions as being forward. And to start thinking of that, to me, really made a big difference, sort of always pushing forward with my hands, even in my down transitions, that they should be forward. And that, I don't know, maybe it would seem so basic, but also so true, and something that I guess you really don't think about too much. Maybe I didn't think about it enough, but I don't know, maybe that's common sense for you guys, but just for me, it's
No, I think
true.
I think that's something. Actually, with my big horse, that is one of the hardest things is a forward canter to trot transition. I school that thing every day, and it is really difficult with my horse because he really wants to drop the hind legs, and in the intermediate one, which is what we're doing, it's right in front of the judge. So it is right there at the very end of almost the very end of the test. So yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I know. So I'm living that dream right now every day, Andrea. I practice that. So I think that's a really important one, actually. That's a good one.
Well, I'm always thinking of being forward on my up transitions. Always, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to trot to canter or walk to trot or whatever. But I just never think forward on my down transitions. And you need to, or it's going to look halted and stilted and, and not elastic and free. And, you see it happen. You see the beautiful transitions that the Grand Prix riders and the upper level riders make when they're in their down transitions, and it just looks like they're floating from one transition to the next. And you I want to try that. I want to be able to do that. But just having that in the back of your mind, thinking of being forward, really helps. And I don't know. Maybe I just think that they're better. Maybe they don't really look better, but to me they felt better. Just sort of having that thought in my head to think forward when I'm coming down transitions, which they seem softer and smoother to me. So you can tell me, Philip, on the weekend whether or not that's actually happening.
Yeah, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. But I was just gonna say, as far as the training perspective, everybody can really nail kind of the walk, trot, canter transitions when they're training level and first level, and then what happens? We go into second level, and now we've got canter to walk. And everybody gets really focused on making those sharp and obedient. And that's where the stilted part of the training comes in, because now you think, okay, and you've got to, kind of be really sharp about your trot to halt center lines, and everybody, okay, I got to, nail it and get that horse immobile. And what happens, they forget to say, okay, I've established that. And now I've got to go back to being soft and a little bit more forward and smooth. They get stuck on that point of, okay, you got all this energy in the canter, you got to shorten the canter, then you got to walk, and then you got to canter off again. Then everybody's always, they take their hands back, and they never get back to training the forward softness again. So I think that's a really, super common problem. Just the way that the training is, and the way that the tests are set up, and the way that you have to develop the horse, and so after you train a few, you get used to the idea that of working up the scale and how to make the horse obedient, but also bring the energy back to it, and bring the forward light, smooth as silk transitions back to it. So that was a really good point.
One of the things he was having people practice when they were doing these sort of, always thinking of always being forward in their down transitions, is not to use the reins in your down transitions. Like he was having people go from a walk to a halt or a trot and not use the reins. Like push the reins forward and have the half halt or any of your down transitions come from just your seat. And people are always wanting to at least even hold the hands, but he wanted you to push your hands forward and make the trot or the down transition come solely from your seat, which is really hard to do.
Really hard to do.
Really hard to do.
Because you're just always tempted to do the half halt with a little bit of a little at least squeeze with your reins or hold or something. I mean, not pull back, but to try and even go from a trot to a walk, which I tried a whole bunch of times this week without the reins at all, like pushing the reins forward and having, like, my horse was very confused. But we did get it, but it's really hard to do.
Yeah, you got to be strict, and you got to be strict with yourself, right? Yeah. So I just thought I'd tap into a little bit of your physio, if you had any takeaways from, kind of rider position or the rider's use of their body, how that was working, because we got to see so many great professionals who actually all, I was trying to notice that how they all ride a little bit differently, and was there anything that you took away from that, or any ideas?
I'm always sort of very attentive to rider biomechanics and position. Leg position, seat position, back position, shoulder position. I'm always very sort of, very closely watching the mechanics of the rider. The young rider from the UK, Rebecca Edwards, I believe her name was, just her biomechanics were absolutely perfect. I hate to use the word perfect, but she was such an elegant, beautiful rider, and so quiet. And that, to me, watching her ride was like the benchmark for rider biomechanics. She had the perfect ear, shoulder, hip, ankle alignment. She had her hip angle was 45 degrees to 50 degrees, which was in a great sort of leg position. So I'm sort of very not critical, but I'm always sort of watching, assessing rider biomechanics and seeing if I can see their aids. If the aids are really quiet, I love to see that. To me, that's an elegant rider, is when you can't see the aids happening. When you watch Charlotte ride, you can't see the aids. She just is so quiet, and there's not a lot of upper body movement too. I like to see sort of not a lot of sway in the trunk when I'm watching a rider. Certainly all the top riders had excellent biomechanics, and but yeah, that's kind of what I'm analyzing when I'm watching a rider, and to see if it's a leg, when the leg is a little bit out of position, does that make a change in the horse and their ability to sort of move forward or come back in their transitions. So, I thought of all the riders, certainly the biomechanics of that young British rider, Rebecca Edwards, was perfect.
Excellent.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great.
That's what we're going for every day.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? I mean, putting the mirrors in my arena, I put mirrors up in our arena about a year ago, and it's really helped me focus on my position. And, every now and then as I come around, I'm just having a look, and I see my right arm sticking out, and, I'll constantly self-correcting my biomechanics, and in hopes that by correcting my biomechanics and trying to make my aids as small as possible, it will be a better picture, but it'll also be more effective in transmitting that energy to the horse and getting them to produce better movement. So,
that's the idea, right? That's the idea.
On a little bit more. Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Andrea, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your perspective and reminding me of all the great exercises and tips and tools that we're gonna be working on and using in the future.
I was just really jealous I didn't get to go with you guys. It sounded like an amazing opportunity and something really fun, and it sounded like he was a really cool guy to listen to. So very fun.
You know what? I could have. It was 8 hours, and it was amazing that, we broke for lunch, but the man stood and trained for 8 hours, and I was mesmerized the entire time. He's not only like a master, but he's charming and funny, and it was just such a pleasure to watch him work, and you could just tell that he derives so much joy in teaching and training, and it was a great weekend. I wish you would have been there too, Reese.
I know. We'll have to. Hopefully, he'll come to Florida. We can make Phil jealous.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
All right.
Yes.
Well, Andrea, you have yourself a wonderful evening. Thank you again.
Oh, it was my pleasure, and it was nice to talk with both of you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple of months, Reese.
Sounds great, Andrea. Me too.
All right. Take care.
Well, Phil, we've got a great tip from you from the Carl Hester Clinic, but we wanted to just tell you guys a little bit about that Stretch Tech shoulder relief girth. I love this girth. I use it on my big horse, and it really, really has changed. He was a little bit girthy, and I changed and put this girth on, and it sits so well in the horse's natural girth groove, and it's flexible in the middle. So I think for a lot of the guys that were asking them to lift up their chest, this is really, really nice. It makes breathing easier. It's a soft contact with the sternum. So it's has an interchangeable liner system, and you can use neoprene, leather, and a wool fleece is coming soon. I personally use the
think the wool fleece is out there, Reese. I think you can order it today if you like.
Wait, I love it. But
Right.
I personally use the neoprene one. Which one do you use, Phil?
I also use the neoprene one. The leather liner is really nice. I always feel like, I just want to kind of reserve it for horse shows or when the horse or clinics and stuff.
Yep.
So I kind of like that idea that they're very interchangeable, and if the neoprene starts to get a bit worn, I can replace that instead of replacing the entire girth, which I think is amazing because a lot of times, kind of the girth wears out in its in its different parts without actually, and then you have to go out and buy a brand new one. This one is great because it's just the liner,
right?
And that's all you need to replace. So that's I think you'll have this girth for a very, very long time, much longer than just the straight leather ones.
No, it's absolutely right. And we put these girths through a lot of work every day, and really just replacing the liner is super easy. So I hope everybody takes a look at TotalSaddleFit.com and takes a look at that Stretch Tech shoulder relief girth. That's another one of the fantastic products that Justin has. And as always, if you have any questions, Justin at Total Saddle Fit is the way to go. So, but Phil, tell us, you've got a great tip that you picked up at the clinic, at the Carl Hester Clinic. So go for it, my friend.
Well, I don't know if it's, I guess it's a tip, but Carl Hester talked about, Charlotte Dujardin's quote that he said that it's kind of got a little bit misconstrued or misquoted, where she has said, I think everybody's kind of heard this, that short range win medals. And he said, well, that's true, but it's not really the point, to have, everybody tightening up on the reins. And what he said is what he really, what should be mentioned in this is that people should ride with forward hands that are always in front of the saddle. So and to maintain, when your hands are forward, to maintain contact, you should have the correct rein length to maintain contact with the horse's mouth, that you don't just shove your hands forward and then the horse is out there flailing on no contact, able to bring his head up, or just to lose the balance, I think. And so that kind of made a lot more sense to me. He says, too many riders ride with these long reins where the hands are, into their stomach or into the saddle or across their thighs. I think we've all kind of seen examples of this kind of riding. And then he says the horses, when ridden that way, aren't encouraged to go forward and aren't encouraged to step, into the bridle. They're always being ridden, from front to back. And so the short reins wins medals is a good idea of having the hands forward, but if you just take really short reins and pull your hands back to your body, then you're achieving a worse effect. It's almost better to have long reins, long reins with your hands back instead of really. It's not about tight reins. It's not about horses with very short necks. It's not about horses with their noses going into their chest all the time. And so he said that when he's doing these clinics, he's trying to clarify that all the time, because people have maybe got a little bit the wrong message or the wrong idea about short reins wins medals. So I thought that was interesting and a good chat, a good discussion about that point. And I think that's anything. If you just take one sentence out of any conversation, you can use it however you want, right? Instead of really thinking about context of the lessons and context about that. Just that it's kind of a short quip about dressage riding. So I really like that because it clarifies things a little bit, and of course it's a great message to try and push the horse to the bridle, push your hands away from your body so the horse is free to go forward and to move and to be in self-carriage and to be light and to get the nose in front of all these things that we talk about every week. I think comes with that message. So I thought it was really great. I thought I'd bring it onto the show so that we can include this to all of our listeners who have probably already heard that short reins wins medals.
Wins medals.
Yeah, so that's great.
For sure. Good job. Yeah, no, for sure. And we actually use that statement, and we usually say it pretty close to when someone's going down the center line. And that's the thing, is people typically get their reins really long. But that idea that it's not
trying to ride a little bit back,
backwards.
Leaning back too far, leaning back to, we can see Charlotte that she really actually sits up to the horse and
yes,
and gets her balance that way, and then has the right rein length for the hand position instead of, the other way around the position. And then, so I think it's great. So we'll think about that as we ride around this weekend in lots of circles.
Yes, I love it. Well, everybody, as always, your emails and Facebook shout-outs, we love them. Keep them coming our way. And you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com. And always feel free to email me at reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way to find me, if you're looking, is on Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for allowing us to put on a great show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we will talk to you in 2 weeks. Looking forward to it.